Jailbreak. It is 9 o'clock in the morning. It's the 19th of September, and I am joined by Tim and Kelsey from Dirt Sunrise YouTube channel and Instagram. These guys are joining me from, can you remind me what the address was again?
Yeah, Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia.
Nice. I was stoked that I hit you guys up and you were able to do this because you're heading off. You won't have a Wi-Fi again for how long?
At least 2 or 3 weeks. It's probably going to be more like a month. And so our biggest struggle will be trying to post videos during that time. But
okay, so most of the people that are tuning in right now and that will tune in later already know who you guys are. But I mean, I've been following your channel since you cut the roof off of Goose. How scary was that, driving all the way up to Canada and then taking a saw to the top of your truck? I mean, like, how about that for pressure? If this goes wrong, we're going to drive all the way home with no roof. I mean, seriously. Kelsey, you weren't scared?
Yeah, and I love no way. I'm terrified. Yeah. I love that truck too. I'd had it for a long time. And it was pretty dialed. But the opportunity to make it into a pop top for this trip and have a little more living space was so great. But, you know, there was only 7 of those, maybe 8 of those Camp Techs. And so when the guy said, I'll sell it, I said, we're coming up this weekend. He's like, to Canada? So, yeah, we drove up from Arizona. And the drive was pretty rough, too, because there was a steering linkage piece that goes through the firewall on 80s. And if you've had that fail, you know. But, like, the steering's all off. So we're driving in the snow. We're taking turns, just shifts, driving.
Yeah, it was stressful.
And then we show up at a guy's house we don't know, and we drink a ton of coffee. We go straight down to his garage. It's something like negative 10 degrees out. It was cold, yeah. And we start sawzalling our roof off. And I'm like, wow, this is either the best or the worst thing we've ever done.
All I could picture is driving home and having the roof like just fly off and be like, what do you do
then? Yeah. I mean, on the tube, it said it takes 4 days to fully cure, and I'm like, we just put the stuff on about 5 hours ago. Shoot.
And did you make it home without any leaks or anything wacky like that happening? Did it hold?
Yeah, nothing, no issues. I mean, the whole way home, you'd hear a noise or a gust, and you'd start looking up at it. And I had a big ratchet strap with me, and I was just planning, hey, if this thing flies off, we're pulling over, we're putting it on the roof, we're ratchet strapping it on, we'll figure it out when we get home. But I got to be at work, you know, like tomorrow. So we were just doing straight driving, almost no stops, and worked out, thankfully.
That's crazy. That's totally crazy. That video got a lot of views. But like I was saying before we actually went live, it amazes me it's a sad state of affairs, but it amazes me the crap that trends on YouTube, that people that'll get 1 million views in a day. And like I said, I've watched videos where you've taken documentary quality audio and video where you guys are sitting on top of a pyramid drinking coffee, and there's nobody around except a howler monkey or whatever that was in the tree next to you. Is epic, totally epic. Tell me about that. I mean, what was it like being at a pyramid with nobody around?
It's epic.
No, it is, man. And the reason we wanted to do this trip is find little experiences like that. And, we want to see the touristy stuff too, but, that pyramid you're talking about, when we were able to go to one where none of the tourists were and just off-road to it and hang out and essentially have that unique experience that was really our own, is what it's all about for us. And we're just kind of hunting those experiences and moments.
And it's really cool to be able to share. We started doing this kind of to share it with family that wasn't understanding maybe why we're doing this, and to be able to share those fairly special moments that they're hard to share because it is so special, but to be able to give people just a little taste of maybe what we're experiencing has been pretty cool.
Okay. How scary was it selling your house, quitting your jobs, and moving into an 80 series? Not a Winnebago, not a Unimog, an 80 series. I have an 80 series, just one person. How do you do it? How scary was it?
I think that was the scariest part of this whole trip. I mean, including every border crossing, every, shady situation. The scariest part of the whole thing was just doing that, because everyone in normal life is like, you're crazy, you're ruining your life, you can't quit your job. You know, that's what you do as an American, right? Is you work until you die, and then, you know, and that's it. And so we definitely had a lot of people saying we're crazy, and you just keep second guessing yourself. So I think, honestly, in a sense, it was easier with two of us, because when I was having a bad day going, this seems like a bad idea, what are we doing? Then maybe she would be more confident that day, saying, no, I think we're going to figure this out. This is going to be awesome. And then vice versa. If she was kind of going, what are we doing? I might be more confident right then and just say, you know what, we can always turn around. And that was our thing, is we're not professing like we're going to Ushuaia. We never wanted to say where we're going, because we didn't really know. Because honestly, what if we 2 months in the truck and we go, this is not fun. Why are we spending our hard-earned money doing this? Let's get back home and, you know, do trips on weekends. So.
Yeah. And it's
You got,
it's
I mean,
hard, it's hard to jump your dreams, you know, like that was, I think, one of the scariest parts. Is this is something that both of us have always looked at as like, oh man, we really want to do this. And then the thought of like, what if it doesn't live up to your expectations is really scary.
Well, the next question I had to ask, I think you kind of already answered, but how has this affected your marriage? Either way. I mean, 24/7, all day long, winching, stuck, monkeys, rain, cold.
Yeah, I think it's definitely marriage counseling for sure. I think it's taught us to deal with stuff right away, because especially stress or fear, it always comes out towards the other person if you're not dealing with it. And so one thing that we have to do is just tell the other person that, like, I'm freaking out right now. And then the other person is much more gracious, I guess, you know, towards the fact that stuff is going on, instead of being like, why are you freaking out on me?
Yeah, I think because you don't just get home from the trip, right, and then deal with stuff and go, yeah, sorry, I got frustrated on that hill. I thought we were going to tip, or, you know, there isn't that downtime. We never get home. You know, there's never that, cool, we're home now. We had some time to think about it. Here's what's freaking me out, or what's I'm worried about, or, you know, I need to work on the truck. It's just, so like Kelsey said, for us, it's been good. It's been for sure challenging though. I mean, obviously there's times where we're driving in the car and we're arguing and we're missing turns and we're like, we're freaking out. And there's a cop starts following us and we go, great, he noticed we were gringos. He's going to try and shake us down. So there's high stress, but you deal with it much more quickly because you have to. There's no point in waiting and talking about it when you get home, because you're not getting home. So you are home.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're both still smiling right now, and it appears to be genuine. So you're definitely beating the odds on that. Let me ask you. I think I already know the answer because I've watched all your videos, but what was the scariest moment that you've had right now? Whether it was law enforcement, or the truck might be going over, or you might not be able to pull yourselves out of this. What would be your scariest?
Yeah, I think it's dealing with the corrupt cops in Mexico, because we've dealt with a lot of cops asking for bribes, but that was different, a little bit more angry, and really felt like you didn't have any control of that situation.
Yeah. We've going to Baja and racing in Baja back when I was younger, we would deal with cops as a normal part of traveling there, unfortunately. But they always are kind of like, hey, you know, come on, give me a few bucks, or hey, you were speeding, that's going to be $40, and you negotiate and see if you can get away with not paying anything, etc. But that situation was tough because we didn't do anything wrong at all. And I disputed each thing he said. He's like, oh, you're not supposed to drive Mexico City with that plate number on this day. And I said, no, actually, I'm good. I checked. Here's the website. See, our plate number's allowed to drive today. Not tomorrow, but today. Oh, your windows are tinted. No. Foreign vehicles don't apply to the window tint. So I was knocking them all down. The guy finally just got pissed. He goes, I'm bringing a flatbed and I'm taking your truck. And I went, that's our home. It's not just a truck. It's, if it was a rental car, you'd go, okay, I'm going to push his bluff. But I think that was the most scary. We really, other than that, I don't think I've had any situations. Sometimes you're in a market and there's, a kid following you and you go, well, they use kids for pickpocketing. So that could be going on. And we just have like a code where we'll say, let's go. And neither one of us, if we actually want to go, would say it like that. We'd say, I'm kind of over the market or whatever. Do you want to head out? But if one of us looks at the other and just says, let's go, one of us saw something we don't like. And so if we say, let's go, we just turn, walk to the truck, and then we'll talk about it and say, yeah, there's a guy that's been following us for a couple streets. So we have stuff like that, but nothing's actually ever happened. We've had a few instances where we have said, let's go, and we just left an area, but nothing has ever developed in anything more. So,
yeah.
I thought it was a trip that you guys, that I can't remember the name of the road, but you kept running into locals that were putting rope across the road, tolls.
Yeah.
That was another not so fun area.
Yeah, that's definitely
stressful.
That's up there for either number 1 or number 2. So Punta Gallinas is the northernmost point in South America, and it's really poor people that live out there. It's all desert. There's no fresh water. Everything they have is brought in. They have some cattle and stuff that are grazing on the few weeds that grow out there, but it's a really poor area of Colombia. And we went through, we tried to count, but we couldn't because we didn't have the camera on 100% of the time, but it was over 60 or 70 roadblocks. You'd be at one roadblock, and
like
you can,
3 more.
yeah, the kids would see that they had some gringos, or anyone, not just gringos, even locals, at a roadblock, and they'd be erecting theirs, putting up the rope, or they'd use motorcycle chain, old rusty motorcycle chain put together. And so you'd hand them water, and the ones that were truly hurting would be super happy for these bags of water. And so we give water out, candy to the kids and water to everybody else. But then some people are like, no, I want money. You know, I need more money. And so, yeah, that was tough. And eventually we drove through one of them, didn't get any video of it, but we drove through one, and all these kids came out of the bushes with bats and like bricks, and they were just going to smash the car to pieces.
Tried to open all our doors.
Yeah, I tried to open the doors. So I rolled down the window and just tried to bluff as best I could, and was just the loudest, most aggressive person I could be. Yelled at them. And they said, but you went through a roadblock. And I was like, yeah, well, it's the 50th one. And I was stopping, but then I saw too many people and just went, screw it, I'm going. I don't like the feel of this. And that was the worst thing to do, of course. The chain got caught up on Goose. It knocked down my ham radio antenna. And then I thankfully, when they started trying the door handles, they were relatively young. The oldest was probably 17, you know, so they were old enough to do damage and maybe hurt us because there was
a lot of them,
12 or 15 of them, something like that. But yeah, that could have been even more scary than the Mexico cops. But it ended so fast, it didn't make as much of a memory because I yelled at them and they're like, well, we need a peso or whatever it was. And I was like, here you go. You know, sorry, didn't mean to go through it, but we need to get out of here. And we just drove away. And that was the end of it. But then the whole rest of those few days, we had to get back. It's a one-way out and back. And so the whole time you're out there, you're thinking, man, I'm not enjoying this because, yeah, I'm at the northernmost point in South America. I need to get out of here. So on the way back, it was just, you know, stopping at them. And then we got behind a local on a motorcycle and they dropped the rope for the motorcycle and we'd try and follow it. And we made a lot of them and then we paid at others. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend going up there. I mean, I understand that people are hurting, but when it turns like that, you go, okay, I don't care so much that you guys need water right now if you're going to hurt us. So.
That is amazing. I don't know how you dealt with it and how you guys made it through. That is totally amazing. What are you, just real quick, what are you guys using to filter water on the road, especially when you're in places like this with no fresh water around?
Oh, yeah. We've been one of those Lifesaver jerry cans. And so we bought that in Mexico. Everyone's used to buying bottled water. So we found that everywhere you could buy the 5-gallon jugs, you know, the big sparklet style ones. And so we buy one, we dump it into the tanks, exchange it right there while we're still at the store for a second one, dump it in the tanks, and then get going. And so we didn't need to filter water as much. The moment we hit Guatemala, a lot of people are just drinking the local tap water. So then we broke out that Lifesaver jerry can. And since then, it's, I don't know, it's probably into the hundreds of gallons now. In fact, right here, we're at an Airbnb right now. And we're leaving this morning to head out back into the jungle. But we have the Lifesaver jerry can on the countertop. And we've just been filtering the tap water to fill all of our jugs and all the tanks in the truck.
That's crazy. And it's worked out really well because I've been looking at one of those for a while. I use the Sawyer, but I literally just broke the bag when I was in Colorado up in the mountains. So I was kind of SOL on that.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, no, it's been good for us. And I had as a backup, we have like I think it's Sawyer brand maybe, but those life straws kind of as our, hey, this thing sprung a leak and is now worthless. So we need something to filter water. but we've been carrying those life straws since the beginning of the trip, still in their packages. But this is good for quantity. So it's not super fast, but it's faster than any of the normal backpacking ones. You got to pump, you pressurize the tank, and then you can leave it for 3 or 4 minutes and it'll continue filtering. And then it needs some more pressure. You pump it a couple times, go back to what you're doing. So in one sitting over like 3 or 4 hours, we probably filter 20 gallons.
Yeah.
So you can do big quantities.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a good endorsement right there. When you're traveling through all these different towns, areas, were you guys well versed in the native language? Like, I don't know if it's Spanish or Portuguese, or I mean, is it all of them? How do you did you already know, or are you learning as you go?
We're definitely learning as we go. I mean, we both took like high school Spanish, so we have a decent base. But as far as being like fluent, definitely not fluent, but we can get by. But Portuguese, when we were in Brazil, and now we'll be heading again to Brazil, is really difficult. And neither of us, I thought I'd get by more with knowing enough Spanish that it's similar, but it's hard.
Yeah. So for me, she's better than I am. So they speak to me and then they realize she's understanding a little better and then they more speak to her. But I can compose a sentence and say, I need new brake pads for the front of my Land Cruiser, in Spanish. And then they come back at you full speed and you go, oh, más despacio, it's too fast. And then usually we can figure it all out. But Portuguese, man, that was, I really thought, it's like when you go to Italy and you speak Italian, instead you speak Spanish to them and they'll get like 50% of what you're saying because Spanish and Italian are close. Right. Portuguese was like, everyone looked at us and went, not a word. I don't know what you're saying. So we didn't realize how different it was. But it works out. And it's one of those things too, where I figure people traveling in Africa and all these other places, they don't have even probably a couple words they can say. So it's definitely probably easier than not knowing a single word. But these dialects too, you get up into the mountains and they're speaking Spanish, but it's sort of like going into the deep South and somebody's speaking slang English where it's like, I don't know what you just said. Or
they have native like Quechua in Peru, and that is crazy hard to understand.
The more remote you are, the more you're going to meet like indigenous peoples, and so we've met a lot of people that speak this Quechua and don't speak much Spanish because they don't go to the local schools. They stay up in the mountains, and so even when they speak no Spanish at all or English, you find a way to communicate. Everyone's just so nice. It's crazy. Yeah. It just reminds you that like. Governments, what are you going to do? We're in Bolivia. It's pretty communist. The government, when you look at what they do, it may not be very good, but the people are still such good people. It's always, and I'm pretty critical, I think. I'm like a critic in general of, that's just the way my mind works. But this trip just reminds me daily, you see somebody walking up to you and you go, oh, what's he want? Or what's he want to sell me? 1 out of 10 or 20 times, maybe he does want to sell you something or try and scam you. But I mean, most every time it's just somebody saying, hey, where are you guys from? What are you doing? Oh, I have a cousin that lives in Florida. Or, oh, I once traveled to New York. Or people are amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you using to navigate? Are you using any Garmin, or are you just using old paper, or are you just simply taking the fork in the road that's ahead of you?
It's a little bit of all of the above. We have paper maps, which I really like. So when we're somewhere planning, I like looking at paper because when you can see all of it, you can go, man, that would really be a far drive to get up there. Just visually is easier than looking at a GPS where you're zooming in and out. So it's all right, broken reality. She is much better. And so paper maps for us are great for planning. Once we're driving on the road, we're using our cell phones and we're looking at Overlander, which is an app that other travelers are putting in data points for you. It's not foolproof because everyone's opinion is different. Somebody will say, hey, great remote campsite. You pull up and it's a pullout on the highway, and then you start to know that guy's name. He must be traveling in like an RV if he calls that remote. And then you start to see other names and you go, ooh, that guy's traveling in a Land Rover Defender. He probably really got remote. And so, these apps can kind of help you find campsites. You just can't take the word that's in them to be definitive, so we're using cell phones. The Garmin GPS that I have, that InReach, is really just for tracking us and as a backup. We'll look at the elevation on it, things like that.
Yeah, we did use it when we were where we were just talking about the gallinas.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't one track to get out there. And so it took us a long time to find our route basically to where we were going. And then on the way back, we realized we don't know which way we came exactly. So we just followed the waypoints on that. But that's about the only time I think we've really used it for navigation.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always good to have as a backup. And we've used it to follow our way back out. When we were in Guatemala, we went pretty deep into the jungle. And then there's so many turns. By the end of the day, you're looking at a 5-way intersection with no tire tracks, and you're going, okay, it's been raining. I don't even know which way we came from. So looking at the Garmin and backtracking on your track is always pretty nice. So
how did I know that you made your own reserve fuel tank. Is that still working out well for you?
Yeah, it's working out pretty good. So the problem I had with it is it had on one of the welds, it had a little bit of a leak. So we tried like soap, JB weld, all that kind of stuff. And over time, vibrating constantly, it always pops off. So what I'm doing now, unfortunately, is we got the 5-gallon jerry can on the back, and then we have the tank I built's like 18.5 gallons. And if we get to a really good fabricator somewhere, I'm going to drop the tank, fill it with water, have him weld it. But right now it's more of if you fill it to the brim, it'll seep out, and I don't want to light goose on fire. So, so we kind of been putting like 12, 13 gallons in it. So it's still a good reserve. I just haven't been using it to its full potential, which is tough because at home I could take care of this in, one afternoon. But on the road, it's just really tough to fix little things like this.
Oh, I can imagine. I've watched you doing breaks and such on the road in the dirt. I mean, I complain because I don't have a garage. I do everything in the driveway, but I can't even imagine doing it in the jungle at all. Well, it's a Land Cruiser, so that's the beauty of it. But have you gotten in any spots where you just had to sit around for days and wait for parts?
No, nothing really. Nothing I can think of. We've, like here in Santa Cruz, we've replaced rear suspension link bushings. They're original. I mean, so, I probably should have replaced them for the trip. But again, being a Land Cruiser, I think you get complacent because it's just so good all the time. So finally, we've been listening to the little bit of metal noise in there as it shakes around. And so we pressed in all new bushings. But nothing ever essential has happened. If you burn a little bit of oil, no worries. You carry an extra quart with you. If you need a bushing, I bought them. Where did we buy them at? In Cochabamba, another city in Bolivia. And then here I found a machine shop with a press, and they just pressed them in. No big deal. So we've been really lucky. And, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we're just trying not to worry about it too much. We carry some spares. Like you've seen, we'll carry brake pads. In case a brake caliper gets stuck on, I don't want to have to run metal to metal. We'll carry fuel filters, some for the auxiliary tank, some for the main, the OEM filter, all that kind of stuff. But man, we've been really lucky.
The hardest part in all of these countries is getting the actual parts is what usually takes longer than just fixing it is, like here in Santa Cruz looking for anything. It's like you go to one store and they go, oh, we don't have that, but they might have it. And so you go to the next store and they go, no, we don't have it, but you know who does? This guy across town. You go there and they go, oh no, we don't have it, but they have it. And you're like, just like someone should have it.
Yeah, no, I'd say we spent the 5 days we've been here in this town just doing work on the truck. And it's stuff that would have taken me, if I had a Napa and my driveway would have taken me 4 hours. Yeah. And we've been going at it 5 days. So.
You guys must have the patience of a saint, honestly. I know that I already know the answer to this mostly, but are you guys trained in anything specific like first aid? I know you do recovery, all that stuff. Anything in particular?
All the recovery stuff I've been doing for a really long time, so that's second nature. And then once Kelsey and I met, she had done some of it working for Overland Journal. She'd been part of that Expedition 7 that went around the world. So she learned a lot, and then all the specifics that I teach, I got her up to speed on. And that's nice because everywhere we go, either one of us can do the driving, either one of us can rig the winch up, even if it's a bit of a complex rigging setup. I know she can do it. So that's a huge asset when you're both, up to speed on that, I guess. Mm-hmm. First aid wise, we both have the wilderness first aid, but nothing more than that. In fact, that's one of our weak points, I'd say.
Yeah, we'd like to do the wilderness first responder courses, but
Yeah, I think so. At the end of this, at some point, whenever we're back home in the U.S., working is number one, obviously, to earn money to try and be able to go on the next trip. But we want to do little things like get our wilderness first responder certification just to be a little more at a higher level.
All right, let me ask, if you had this to do all over again, would you still use an 80 series?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny because we're constantly looking at, what trucks or vehicles we might want someday, or, something to dream about. And it's hard to pull ourselves away from the 80 series. Yeah. It's just so capable.
In fact, I would say I'm more confident it's the right truck now than before we left. Before we left, I love my truck. I love 80 series, but I've always been obsessed with 70 series since, like, I don't know, back in the early 2000s when I even realized 70 series Land Cruisers existed. I went, other people, it's that grass is greener. They get the cool trucks. And they're so square and neat and this and that. And then now we've had some time in them and they're awesome. They're really well built, but they sort of off-road like a bread truck. They got leaf spring suspension. They're really skinny, so they get tippy. All the people that we've run into that have a 70 series kind of, they have a lot of negative things to say. They're reliable. They're definitely reliable. They're an awesome truck, and I still want one someday. But it's funny, everyone actually, if they have the money, is going, well, maybe I'll take an 80 series and put a 70 series body on it so it looks cool. But in the end, we all want the 80. So
it's a high dollar. It's a high dollar job to get a 70 series put on an 80 series frame. I love the 80. I think it's phenomenal. But I'm only one person. I can't imagine two people. I love the way you set the back up. It's perfect. But it's really hardcore. I mean, it's not even a Toyota, minivan camper. It's a 80 series.
Yeah.
So close
when we see
24/7.
The little Mitsubishi Delica, the little tiny vans, we look in them and they have more room than we do in our giant 80 series. So I agree. We've realized, though, too, that our truck right now is set up perfectly for the United States and Baja and like that style of camping. Maybe Australia it would be good for, because you're outside. You cook outside. You hang out outside. But yeah, if we're going to go to like Mongolia in the future or Africa where there's something that might want to eat you out there, we were even already talking about maybe building a box on the back of Goose and trying to get an interior space. Because you're right, we really just don't have interior space at all.
What's the worst weather you've run into that held you up for a day or two or more?
I think it's weather with the terrain. So we've had really bad mud before where the trail's fine when it's dry and then it starts dumping and, almost flat ground. You're not going anywhere. You're just spinning all your tires. And so that's been some of the worst. But then up at elevation too. I mean, these are elevations that, how like your experiences in Moab or whatever, they kind of prepare you for how to deal with things. But we're at 16,000 feet. I've never been at that elevation, right? Or we were just at almost 19,000 feet in the truck last week. And you go, when a storm moves in up here, what's it going to do, right? So, I think for us, all those different extremes are so much more extreme that we just haven't dealt with them before. And so that's been interesting. So we bought warmer winter clothes to go down to Patagonia. We've bought better rain jackets, all the stuff that kind of we make do with in the US. We're now going, you know what? Let's buy that expensive rain jacket because it's worth it for where we're going. So.
I'm stuck here. Stand by. How epic was it at the top of that volcano that you guys hiked up? I mean, how did you even get air up there?
Oof. Yeah, that was an intense hike, and actually one of the scariest. I don't know. I was stressed out because there was a point where it's dark because we're climbing in the morning to try to make it to the top, and the whole side is icy and it's a big exposure, and you're basically just crawling up on all fours hoping that you don't slip. And you're freezing and it's hard to breathe. And I just remember thinking like, why are we doing this? Yeah. And then you make it past that and you go, okay, this is why we're doing it. We got this cool view. It's amazing to be up here. But there's definitely moments that if you can push through them are worth it, but they're definitely scary.
Yeah, we've tried to, like, that was one of those ones where we kind of had to finally just pull the pin and call it, because we were up at 4 a.m. hiking, and we got to a section that was frozen solid. There's no one else on the mountain. There's no one else around. So there's no one to look to kind of go, yeah, this is crazy, or no, this isn't, you know, and we didn't have crampons or any sort of spikes on our boots. So that was interesting. And then, yeah, breathing and just concentrating constantly on breathing. That's your main thing that you're focusing on. Made it pretty interesting. But
the worst part about that hike was I left my favorite gloves on the top of the volcano.
Yeah.
I set them down when I was doing something, and then, you know, 20 minutes later, I realized I don't have my gloves, and I was like, nope, I can't go back.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, you
but
want
I'm
to turn
still
around
sad
and go
about
back?
that.
What are you guys using for a drone? Because you're getting some seriously awesome aerial footage.
Oh, thanks, man. We actually just using a little Spark, you know, the cheapest one from DJI, and but we're kind of excited because while we were home, we picked up the DJI Mavic Air, the sort of slightly better one that can do 4K and all that. So we already noticed the video from it, and the stabilization's even better. So we're hoping once we catch up a little bit more in videos, which we're probably a few weeks out from the footage of the new drone starting to show. So hopefully it gets even better, and there's more flight time too, which is really nice.
Have the locals or anybody giving you a hard time about flying a drone in the country? Are there any special regulations, or are you good to go?
Mostly good to go. Nicaragua, you do not want to be caught with a drone in the country. It's a big deal there. And so, but there is a site that'll tell you in each country what the rules are. Do you need a special license? I think this has become even more like prevalent information now that the Way Overland folks, no one's for sure, it sounds like, whether or not it was specifically flying a drone that got him in jail in Iran.
Yeah.
But that story, if that is the reason they're in jail, man, that's something that if you weren't thinking about it before, people definitely are now. So we'll check the website to kind of see, you know, what are the rules in this country. But we also only fly it when we're alone. Like, there's some cool spots, like when we're in Lima, you're sitting there, it looks like Newport Beach. It's real fancy, and there's a huge bluff with waves rolling in. And it might have been a cool spot to fly it, but you know, I don't want to be that guy who's flying it over people's heads or near people's homes. So we really only fly it when you see those shots. It's because we're totally alone. And I would say 90 or maybe even 100% of the time when we've flown it, no one else knew that we flew it because we were just in the middle of nowhere. So I just feel more comfortable doing that. And that's usually when you get the pretty shots anyways. But yeah, we don't, like when we're in a town like this, I don't want to put it up in the air in case there's like a city regulation. Like, yes, they're legal in our country. That's what the website said, but it's a huge, big deal if you fly it and the police will come get you or something. So we don't want to mess with it.
Let me ask you this. After being boots on the ground, because you're not jumping in an airplane, flying to a hotel, staying at the pool, visiting the locals, you know, the local town like in the Bahamas or stuff like that. How has this affected your view of being an American, being with these people that are dirt poor, holding up rope tolls just for water, etc.? Has it changed you at all, or changed your view?
Yeah, it has, I think, for me, but not in the way I expected. I thought it would. It did a lot of the things I expected. It humbles you, and it makes you appreciate what you have. It makes you realize how amazing the U.S. is in terms of like what we have in terms of set aside land to explore, how it's really difficult. You got to work hard, but you can make enough to save to do something instead of breaking even. But the thing I didn't expect is a lot of the foreigners we meet a lot of French people traveling, a lot of Australians, a lot of New Zealanders, you know, a lot of people from all over the world doing a similar trip, but usually not as off-roady as us, but like in a van or whatever. And they go, ooh, do you hide that you're an American? Do you tell people? Because they think that locals are not going to like you if you're an American. We even met one couple that on the side of their truck, they said, we're not Americans, in big letters in Spanish.
Because they had bought their RV or whatever they were driving, I think, in the U.S., so it had U.S. plates.
Yeah, U.S. plates. But they wanted to make sure no one thought they're Americans. And I said, look, we tell everyone we are. And immediately, the thing I didn't expect is everyone's got a story. They go, you know, my mom was a model. She was from Colombia, and she lived in New York. So I got to spend time in New York when I was a kid. I love the U.S. And then somebody else says, I sneak across the border every year to go harvest tobacco in Kentucky. And then I come back and I'm with my family here in Oaxaca. And you go, Okay. Then somebody else here in Bolivia, we're sitting at a car parts place and a kid walks up and in perfect English goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And he went to school in Florida. Another guy we met here in town who's a Land Rover mechanic. He went to school at Texas A&M. So it's like everyone you talk to's got a story about the U.S. and it's a good one. So it's actually,
I don't think we've had a bad reaction, really.
No, which is sort of funny. And then the people that do have, I wouldn't say negative, but like in Mexico, our buddy who owns a brewery there, I could say buddy now because we met him and we stayed at his house. We didn't know him before the day we met him. He's got a beer that's called Trump Sucks. And it's not like a political statement. It's a joke. And like he laughs when he orders it. He's in Mexico. So he just made a beer that's like, "Oh, that guy doesn't like us. He sucks." But it's not angry. Like none of these people are angry. I feel like there's more anger in the US when we talk to our friends back home. So really it's kind of improved my view, at least in certain ways. Maybe not the government and all that, but
I think it makes you especially like realize even little things, like going to the grocery store. Even at the nicest grocery store here, it might be hard to find if I want to make Thai food for dinner. They don't have everything to make Thai food. They don't have all the veggies, but you're so used to, even in a little town in the U.S., to be able to walk in and get pretty much whatever you need to make whatever you want. And those little things make such a big difference.
Yeah. No, so it's been interesting. I didn't expect any of these changes we were just talking about where, people are so excited to tell you something they know about, your country, or they want to tell you about when they visited someplace, in the U.S. So that's been actually really cool. I didn't expect it or realize how many people in every one of these countries at some point has visited the U.S.
That's awesome. That was not the answer I was expecting, but I'll take it. It worked. Let me ask you this. How long have you two been together?
6 years, I think. 7 years.
It's good. So you can see I don't get in trouble for not knowing like our anniversary or any of that because she forgets too. So it's great. But we met actually at Overland Expo, which is hilarious that, like at an event that's, 98% males, that all of a sudden you go, wait, who's that? And so we noticed each other one year there. Oh yeah, never judge. Sorry, I noticed Rusty Scott. I agree with you completely. Government people, completely different. But we met each other there, and I noticed her one year. She noticed me, and then we didn't talk till the next year. So we're both too quiet or too shy to actually meet.
Kelsey's become quite the internet superhero because she's just badass. So you're lucky to have met her, I would imagine. Kelsey, how did you get into all this? This isn't the usual. You don't usually see a woman that could either be a model or standing up to her knees in mud, pulling the winch cable. You know what I'm saying? How did you get into all this? Because you're good at it.
It's kind of a random story. I was working actually at just a local coffee shop. And Chris Collard, who's an awesome guy, great in the off-roading world, but I didn't know who he was, obviously. He was in there working late on a story, and he had done a trip to Africa, and I had just started talking to him, and he showed me a couple pictures from that trip, and my mind was absolutely blown. I mean, this was like National Geographic type pictures, and I was like, this guy right here, he does this? And Overland Journal's office was nearby, so they'd stop in this coffee shop for coffee, and I'd see all these crazy trucks that they'd have, and I just was like, this is so interesting to me. And after meeting Chris Collard, I thought, why not just ask? So I sent him an email, and I was like, hey, I talked to you the other day, and I'm really interested in what you do. I love the idea of being involved in making a magazine, that creative outlet. Do you guys ever have interns? Like, I'd be willing to sweep the floors, do whatever for free. I just would, I want to learn and I want to see what it's all about. And so it ended up that they needed an intern. So I came, and I think I worked for 3 days, and they offered me a job because someone else was leaving. So I ended up working with them and getting to travel, like Tim said, and meet all of these great people that are still a big part of our lives. And I ended up working. I would run their booths at Overland Expo, and so I was always there doing that, and Tim was teaching there, and that's how we met. But I really just had this interest and then fell in love with it. You know, it wasn't something that my family was into or anything like that. So it's really random that it's something that I just loved.
Well, then I knew it was going to be all right when our second date was like a week in Baja. So I was like, you know, we're just going to either set this thing on fire and we'll never know each other again, or it's going to work out, because we just went, you know, I've been planning to head to Baja for like a week and a half with some friends. You want to go? And so that was like our second date, and we didn't kill each other. So
yeah.
Well, the internship must have worked out, because you got the editing and the photography is phenomenal. I mean, you've definitely pushed the National Geographic vibe several times. I mean, you've caught some epic shots, epic stuff most people will never see in their lives ever, unless it's in a magazine or a website.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times we have to say to each other, like, we're here right now. We're looking at this. Like, this is real, because it's just almost hard to take in sometimes. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's hard to remember sometimes to be in the moment. You know, you're going and you're trying to get video of stuff and take photos, and then you just realize, like, that's a crocodile or whatever the thing is, you know. And yeah, I think that's our most thankful thing for making these videos, and I'm thankful she does all the editing, and it's amazing. She puts in hours and hours, you know, tens of hours each week. But it's so nice to be able to look back, and we could watch one of our own videos from like 2 months ago and go, wow, we really did go there. You know, I know we were there in real life. I know we did it, but something in your brain goes, nah, we're not the type of people that'll be doing that. And then you watch your own video. So I'm thankful that hopefully in 50 years or whatever, I could sit down and look at this and go, wow, we did that. So.
We did that. Yeah, the videos will be around because a lot of people save them. I know they do. So that's a good thing. How far are you going to go with this? I mean, you're in southern Bolivia right now. This is crazy. In an 80 series. How far are you planning on taking Goose?
You know, our thinking right now is we don't really ever want to stop. You know, we know we need to come home and work though, right? We came home for 3 months just recently, and we worked all the events we could and did all the training we could. And the videos from that will be showing up soon. I tried to take a bunch of video while we're home, but we want to come back and continue working, save some more money, and then head somewhere new. For this part of the trip, we're now close enough where we want to go for it. Barring the engine blowing up or something catastrophic happening, we want to get all the way to Ushuaia. So that wasn't really the goal when we started out. We just wanted to meander and see where we went and randomly explore. But I feel like we're not really that close. We're actually pretty darn far still. Yeah. But we're so close visually that I really would love to get all the way down into Patagonia. So the goal right now is keep zigging and zagging wherever we feel like it, but slowly make our way down. And when Patagonia and Ushuaia, the southern tip, are having their summer, which would be, you know, December, January, inverse to our winter. That should be the nicest time of year. So we're going to go for it and keep heading south. And, you know, if something happens to the truck, no worries. We'll do whatever we got to do to fix it and try and keep going. But after that, I don't know, man. We talk about it every day. Every country on earth we've probably talked about. Could we get there? Could we afford that? Could we really do it? So we don't know.
I'd have to imagine that Australia is on the list of places that you'd want to box the truck up and ship it.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I'm not saying I haven't researched diesel engine conversions in Australia and what they cost. So, but we absolutely, and there's so many people. This is the other thing of being people that we have our little friend group and we're pretty quiet, relatively speaking. I know we're making videos, but in terms of meeting people, this trip has opened us up to so many people all over the planet. Now we have friends because we bump into them on the road. You meet a guy on a motorcycle, you spend one night around a campfire, and now you're friends. And then you keep talking, and he's like, "You got to come visit me in Germany. You got to come visit me in Australia. You got to, all these people are talking to you now." And you go, "This is not so crazy. Maybe we could go to Africa. We know 3 people in that country now. Never thought I'd know anybody just randomly that lives down there." So, we want to keep going, and Australia is definitely high up on the list.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the internet. It allows people from other countries to, I've got people that are quote unquote friends that I've never met, but they're all over the world. It's phenomenal. And when you meet people on the trail, or especially like in South America, etc., there's a kindred spirit there already. These people are doing the same thing. They're not afraid to get dirty. If something fails, they can handle it themselves. They're not calling 911, etc. And I mean, I live in Massachusetts. I'm an anomaly. People are horrified when they see my truck coming down the street. They think it's the military. You know what I mean? You were talking
Absolutely,
about the turbo diesel conversion. I would love. I mean, I have a supercharged 4.5. Supercharged is great, but on a trip like yours, I'd have to have a bypass, because if it's not high octane, the truck's going to sound like a popcorn machine.
Yeah, in fact, the octane's so bad here in Bolivia, and there's not different octanes. It's just, here's gasoline, here's diesel. You got two choices. And so we had to actually retard the timing on the engine a little bit to get it to stop pinging. So it is a thing. You know, a supercharger on one of these trips is not great. But I sadly did the math when we were still up in Panama. And if we were buying diesel compared to gasoline, the cheaper cost of diesel, because of course in the US, diesel's more expensive, but everywhere else, well, at least on this trip, diesel's cheaper. So if you're buying the cheaper diesel and you're getting the better mileage that comes with the diesel, we would have saved like $8,000 in fuel just by Panama. So for an international trip, a really simple, slow, boring diesel, man, that's the way to go.
I just taught some of the guys on mud, believe it or not. They didn't understand. I just got the Hyperflex arms and I ordered them straight from Superior Engineering in Australia. And they're like, dude, they're so expensive. It's like their prices are in Australian dollars. It's not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
$1,500 is $900 on our end. So getting a diesel conversion, if you could possibly do it in Australia, would be phenomenal.
That's exactly what I realized. I talked to a guy and he threw out some numbers and I went, whoa, that's a lot of money. But it was about what I expected it to be, honestly, in US dollars. And then I did the conversion and went, oh, hey, that's pretty cheap. I mean, it's not cheap, but it is way better than you'd ever pay in the States. So
yeah,
that's the thing with driving the 80 series coast to coast. That's the biggest expense. I mean, I think if I'm out for a month, I'll stay in a hotel, maybe a day or two out of 30 or 40 days. But that's simply for Wi-Fi. Like, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I need a signal. The amount of money I put into that gas tank it's obscene. It's first class flight, no problem. It's obscene. So when the engine finally goes, I got a line on a guy that claims he can get in the crate Japanese Toyota, the good heavy duty turbo diesel, and he was talking really low numbers. So if that comes to fruition, I'll let you know. He does a lot of import.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
They do have a YouTube channel. All the links are in the comment section. They have a Instagram, they have a YouTube channel, and they also have a Patreon, which I support them on because I wish I was them. Not both of them. All right, Kelsey, this is one that I got an email on yesterday. How hard is it being a woman on the road doing this? Because this isn't just a road trip. This is a jungle, pyramid, South America. How hard is it being a woman? I'm not asking. I'm relaying.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think I'm not normal. And so I think, I am about on the same pace with when Tim wants a shower, I probably want a shower too. So, it's different for everyone, I think. But as far as people treating me differently, I actually think it's probably easier sometimes to be a woman because people react better. Like guys, police officers, any of that kind of thing, they're more likely to be a little bit more kind, I think, to a woman. And so I'll notice a lot of times if he goes up and talks to somebody, he'll get a much different answer or reaction than if I go and talk to them, or even if we're together, as opposed to him just being by himself. So I haven't seen it as a negative at all. But if you like to have showers all the time and those kind of luxuries, it would be tough. But I actually really enjoy living out of the truck. So
yeah, she's tougher than me, so that works out well. But honestly, the reaction part, the reaction part is huge. I know there's inherent maybe greater danger in being a woman traveling. I think lowest price, if you've never seen any of her videos or read one of her books, check it out. She's amazing. She's from the UK and she's been around the world alone, even Iran, traveling solo as a woman, and has never had an issue. So I think there's a way you carry yourself, and Kelsey's really good at that. Sometimes we'll see other travelers, and what they're wearing is they walk around town, they're kind of asking for a different reaction, you know, and the way she carries herself, you just know not to mess with her. I don't mess with her. So
I think it's in a Latin country too, there's a lot more respect maybe held for women. Like, you know, someone at a stoplight will be trying to clean our windshield and Tim will say, no, we don't, thank you, we don't need it. And then they'll go, oh, why? And then if I say, because I said so, like I told him he's not allowed to get his window cleaned. And they're like, oh, okay. So it's just, I think culturally, it's here at least, there's that aspect.
Yeah. Like, you know, if she acts angry at somebody, they back down. Like any tough guy, a cop even, if it's her saying, no, get out of here, they almost feel like it's, I don't know, maybe they feel like, oh, I've been yelled at by my mom or my family member before, but they kind of get sheepish and walk off. If I'm trying to be tough, that doesn't work out well. So I'm always just trying to be nice and calm and you know, guys, right? You're trying to, it's like a competition, and if they've got the power, they want to make sure you know they've got the power. But when she jumps into the mix and says, no, I don't think so, that's not true, it really does seem to diffuse the situation, because they don't know how to react to a woman being so forceful. They're like, well, I can't just yell back at her. So yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's been a big asset to us, being able to talk our way out of situations. So
yeah.
Also, being in some of these places, to these people, it's probably the first time they've ever seen somebody in real life with blonde hair.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, so, I mean, I you know, in the States, you're not used to. I'm not personally used to somebody staring at you as you're walking down the street, and so you get that all the time. But it depends. We're in a big city right now. You know, they see gringos all the time. We've seen some gringos walking around. But you get out in the mountains and people, you know, you're driving along and the person's jaw just drops and is staring at you, and you realize nothing's wrong, nothing's bad. They're just shocked. They haven't seen someone that looks like you. But yeah, the first couple of times somebody looks at you like that, you go, what did I do? You know, but yeah, it is interesting.
Well, I know that you're getting ready to hit the road. We have hit an hour here. So anything pressing, any information you want to pass on? You guys aren't going to be at Overland East, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, we're not making it back. This will be the first expo I haven't worked since it started. And so we just realized that to fly all the way back now, we're so far south that we just, to constantly break up the trip like that kind of makes it tougher to settle back into the truck and get back in your rhythm of traveling. So we're going to skip this one and then be back for West, hopefully, as long as they have us. There's new owners of Expo, so it used to be, so it was some friends that started it. So that's one of the reasons from the beginning I was teaching at it. And now there's new ownership. And so I think we'll be back, but you never know. We plan to be back around that time of year just to work anyways, because it's time to you know, pay for all this traveling.
That makes sense. All right. I guess that's pretty much it, unless you've got anything pressing. Like I said, links to Tim and Kelsey and all their unbelievable adventures are going to be in the comment section. I really urge everybody to subscribe. I do. It blows my videos away. Actually, I'm not even going to mention my videos in the same sentence. How's that? So forget that.
We appreciate your support so much. We try and do a video every week. And if we have service, we stick to it. And if we don't, we're a few days late, usually looking for some cell signal. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's been good talking to you.
Anytime. And you guys have friends all over the United States and probably all over the world now. So if you ever need anything, just hit me up and I got your back. No worries.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Tim, Kelsey, Dirt Sunrise, Richie from JailBreak. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the mods. We are out.
Thank you.